Well, good morning and welcome back to the Little French Homestead. If you are new to my channel, welcome. My name is Cherie, and today is um, Thursday morning. Now, you guys are going to see this a little later. I was a little bit crunched for time to get my video done yesterday. I really wanted to do this yesterday, but stuff happens. So I am bringing it to you first thing this morning. I am sitting here in the Walmart parking lot. My work is right across the street from me. And so I just wanted to have a little bit of peace and quiet. My daughter had a friend over, so this morning it's not really loud in my house, but I figured this would be a better opportunity for me to go over some stuff here in the car before work. So let's get straight to it. So this is going to be again like some hurricane prep stuff, but mostly a little bit of questions and answers that I still had many people ask me. So I wrote it down on a piece of paper of some of the questions, and I'll go over some answers and stuff for you. So I had quite a few people sit there and say, wow, you moved from New Hampshire to Florida quite often. Some of them asked for like the days, like the years that I did. So I was born, and I'm going to date myself, 1971. So yes, I am currently 55, thankfully. But I lived in New Hampshire from 71 until 91. And after my daughter was born, I moved down to the Florida Keys, pretty much on Big Pine Key. My parents had moved down the year before. And my daughter's father and we separated, and I had to move down there with them. So then I lived with them for a little bit, but then I had my own place. But I stayed from 91 till 2007. And then I moved back to New Hampshire in 2007, stayed until 2019. And then 2019, we sold everything and moved down here to Florida. Now, I have been through several hurricanes down here in Florida, so I kind of know what's going on. Hurricane Andrew came through in 91, or I'm sorry, in 92. That was our very, very first hurricane that we went through down there with my parents. My daughter was about a year old at that time frame, and we actually learned a lot. You really don't know what you necessities needed until you've gone through one. And with that, we got a little bit more prepared as a family, but still not a lot. We didn't really have a lot of room. My parents had bought a house on stilts, and it was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath place. And we didn't really have a lot of extra room to store anything, but we did the best that we could. I mean, we made it all through. In 1998, I was living now on my own, and we had Hurricane George come through, and we actually went to Sebring, Florida. Then we were under a tornado watch when we got there. Now, a little bit about the Keys, though, is once the evacuation orders have cleared, you have to show your driver's license. So then that way there doesn't become any looters or anything like that. So there was a couple of checkpoints all the way down. At Florida City Homestead, as it comes from US 1 to go into the Florida Keys, because US 1 is our main highway in and out. You have to show your ID. Then when you got to one of the other bigger keys, it was called Marathon. Before you could cross over that 7-mile bridge, you had to show them your ID to make sure that your address was in the lower keys, because they didn't want anybody from Marathon or anybody else to head down that way. We didn't have that much structural damage to the house. There was some shingles that were blown off. We did have like a hot tub and a above ground pool. The hot tub got moved around a little bit. Our freezer chest that was down was moved around quite a bit. We lost a car. but the other cars that we had all taken up there, they were all fine. For then Hurricane Katrina, Rita, and Wilma. Now, we did have to evacuate. My parents at that time had already moved back to New Hampshire. I decided to go ahead and stay. Um, for Katrina, we got very little. We got like minor damage for some trees and some flooding because Key West is a very low spot. By that time, I was living in Key West. Same thing for Rita and Wilma. Now, Rita and Wilma, we were told to evacuate. So we did evacuate. And when we came back down, Rita again just had some minor damage and some flooding in some areas. But Wilma really destroyed a lot of Key West. A lot of the car dealerships, all of their cars were completely ruined. There was salt water in everything. The local Kmart, a lot of the racks and stuff were actually in the parking lots across the street and into. There was like a small little bay there. I mean, very small. When I say bay, there was a lot of seaweeds and mangroves. A lot of the clothes and stuff were all over in there. It took Kmart, probably a good 6 to 8 months before they could open back up again. That was how bad that it was, a lot of damaged. Um, and we were really never fully 100% prepared for any of this stuff. When we went to back to New Hampshire, I had met my husband in 2010. Now, he was born and raised in Nassau. So for all of his life, he had to deal with it. And in a Nassau, you can go from a safe place, like in the Keys, you could actually go to, Miami or elsewhere. But in the Bahamas, you can't go anywhere. So you're kind of stuck. So he had to deal with it on their way. Now, they were prepared to a certain point as well, him and his family. His sister, who was a little bit older than him, was already out of the house by then, during most of the ones that were coming through. And in 2005, if I remember correctly, he was back in North Carolina, living there for a little while. But, it was really devastating if you were to live there and you didn't really have any place else to go. Now, the reason why we decided to move back to Florida, New Hampshire was just getting way too expensive. We don't have sales tax and we don't have the income tax, okay? But our property taxes were skyrocketing. And in the wintertime, you've got your oil and your electric. That was very high, even though we had a pellet stove. We tried to do as much as we could with the pellet stove, but you still could not get rid of the electric. You got the dishwasher, you got laundry, you got showers, all of that runs off electric, your heating oil. Those bills were getting super, super high every year. Those prices have kept raising and raising. And I said before in a previous video, we had gone to Orlando for a family vacation. So at that time, all four of my kids and my mom and dad, we all rented a place. We stayed there for about a week. My parents stayed a little longer. I took everybody back. And on our way back, my husband and I were discussing, we're going to take off. We can't do the cold anymore. We had to have a guy plow our driveway. So when you had, snowstorm after snowstorm after snowstorm, I could not actually tell him, hey, go clean the shovel out the yard, because, you get really heavy snow and that is really backbreaking. Well, it was like 25, 50, 75 bucks, every time that you go ahead and do that. And, that's expensive when it happens to be done, 7, 8 times in, a month or less. So we're figuring out that Florida, since we both love Florida, we're going to go back down to Florida. So then that's why we moved in 2019. Now we rented for about a year and until we bought our house, which we currently use out of. And I mean, it's just, we feel so much better. I mean, yes, our electric bill is a little high in the summer months, but it compares nothing to what we were going through. I mean, the oil up there, I mean, we were getting, almost $400 to $500 worth of oil to heat our house about almost every 6 to 8 weeks. And that's almost like another house payment. I mean, we could not afford that. And thankfully for family, they did help us out quite a bit. We had to pay them back, but it was just too much money going out and not enough coming in when it got that high. So now that we're back in Florida, we've gone through 6 years. Thankfully, we've never had any major hurricanes to hit us. Now, we are in Marion County, so we are just outside Ocala. And we did get no power for Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton that happened 2 years ago. Was it 2 or a year ago? One of those two. I think it was either 2024 or 2025. But we had no power for a little bit. That was it. Thankfully, knock on wood, that was it. Okay. Now, we are still in the process of trying to build up our home pantry. And I was talking with my husband the other day. We have cases of water, okay? And we have 5 cases. There's 5 of us living in the house. And that would really only last us probably a good week. And we have one 5-gallon. And we're like, that's not going to last us too long. So what I have decided to do, and over the next, when we get the stuff, let me back up a second. We are going to get another heavy duty shelving unit so we can go ahead and put it in our back closet. Our pantry, for the backup stuff is all in me and my husband's closet because it's a huge closet and we don't really have that many clothes. I mean, it's t-shirts, shorts, tank tops. That's pretty much all what we got. Some dresses for me, obviously. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to eventually go through all of those cases of water and we're going to actually start stocking 5-gallon jugs. Okay. And that's going to need a little bit more rearranging and stuff all back there. And we still have about, I think I wrote it down, we have about 1 to 2 weeks worth of food in the house if power goes out like that. Now I'm talking using the refrigerator. Now, if you all know this refrigerator, you are good for about 4 hours on your refrigerator, especially if you don't keep opening up. So that's the main food that you want to eat from first. Okay. So you're going to want to eat up everything in the refrigerator as best as you can. Then you're going to work on your freezers. If you don't keep opening up your freezers, they can last a good 24 hours if you fill them all the way up. So if you see a hurricane coming and you have like extra like soda bottles or milk jugs or something, clean them out really thoroughly, fill them up with water, stick them in that freezer. Not only is that extra drinking water for you and your family, any pets that you have, it can also be used for your personal hygiene for like washing and stuff. And that's always a good thing to have as a backup. Brushing your teeth, you're going to need water for that. So as I'm looking through all of this and noticing that, a lot of my stuff, a lot of my preps still requires a lot of water. If we're going to do potatoes, like real potatoes, if we have them, we don't have then the oven if the power's out. So then you got to boil potatoes outside. Well, you still need water for that. You need water to do the rice and pastas. So we need to stock up extra. And I've noticed that the individual water bottles, I mean, we'll probably still keep like a case and then just pile up a case because we usually tell you to take those water bottles out and about when we're doing errands. Um, is to go ahead and replace those with 5 gallon. Now, we'll probably just not still put the 5 gallons on that heavy duty rack because I'm doing a lot more canning and I really need that room in that back pantry for all the canned stuff. And I think that's going to help. That one of the plastic ones that I have in the back that I do have a lot of canned stuff on, it's starting to bow in. And so I'm going to have to put a lot of the dry stuff on that. So, we're going to have to do some shifting and reorganizing, and I'm going to have to do some inventory too as well. But that is basically kind of what we are heading to go and do. I would personally like to have at least a full month worth of supplies in my house and then still continue to work up to that. Hurricane prep and or just regular uh, pantry preparedness. You should always have at least 6 months to at least a year worth of backup supplies because you don't know what's going to happen. You could lose your job, you could become sick. There could be, unfortunately, something maybe more serious. Somebody gets to a car accident, or even, and I hate to say this word, but even death. So you need to really make sure that you can sustain yourself, um, especially if you have another partner and kids to rely on and depend on you, that you need to really make sure that you can feed them. When I was out of work, when I was let go from my previous job, that big difference really helped us. We had almost a 5 month supply of food. And I'm not talking just like, like the milks and stuff. I'm talking like we had green beans and, canned foods, canned soups. Ramen, I know that's not great for you, but in a pinch, you can do that. I had built up that supply quite a bit. I actually built it up a couple times. My oldest daughter, a couple of times, had lost her job and she needed the food. So my mom and we prepared some nice care packages for her and her boyfriend. And I had drove them all the way over to her house. And I mean, I added it all up and I had given her like close to, almost $400 worth of my backstock after I had just refilled us all up. So my backstock has been taking a big dip, which is fine, but that's what it's there for, to help my family, even my daughter who's, 3 hours across the state, to help survive. That's what you do. And so now I just need to slowly restock all that back up again. And yeah, we depleted quite a bit of it because you also wanted to go ahead and make sure that you have enough for you. And we were going through it because you want to rotate, first in, first out. And then we did notice that there was some stuff that we really weren't eating a lot of. We noticed that we really didn't like the canned green beans. So that's why the video a couple of days ago, I showed you, that you can still do home canned green beans for yourself and don't have to rely on canned. We prefer corn and peas canned. And I'm not even liking the frozen green beans either. So that's a perfect way to go ahead and do that. If I can't get fresh green beans, I would rather can them like that instead of have somebody canned. Um, but, you got to fill up with you got to fill up. That makes sense for you. And with that all in mind, I think I answered pretty much everybody's question. I just did, instead of answering the question, I just went on to answer everybody's all at once, kind of. You really want to make sure that for you and your family, you stock what you eat what you stock. Okay? First in, first out, write dates. I have neglected to write some dates on some of the food that I've got in. So when I go and reorganize my back pantry, that's exactly what I'm going to go ahead and do. I'm going to go ahead and take inventory, open some of the boxes that some of my stuff are still in some boxes. And we're going to go ahead and I will just write then the date that I do it. So it's probably not going to be until next month I do this, but we're going to make sure that it gets taken care of, and I'll just write down next month's date on it because I don't remember when I bought it. But I'll look at the expiration date, make sure it's still good. But we just need to go through the food, but we need to make sure that I want to have my family be a little bit more prepared. We are in hurricane season here in Florida. It started for us June 1st. It does not end until November 30th. And we can last, like I said, a week or two, you know. I mean, the stuff in the freezer, our meat freezer, that could carry us over probably to that 2-week mark. And then we're just living off rice and beans at that time. And that's fine if it came down to absolutely necessary, but I don't want to do that. I want to make sure that we stock up a little bit more. So we are in the process of doing that, and I will take you along. I hope I've answered everybody's questions. I can certainly do more. That is not a problem. But hopefully I answered them all for you today. And I just want to say thank you so much for allowing me to come into your home. I do hope you like these videos. Please like, share, but most importantly, go ahead and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you can get all of my new and updated contents. I usually try to post 3 days a week, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and on Sundays. You guys have a great day and keep on cooking. Bye.